The smell of fresh herbs and sizzling garlic filled the air as Rosa Martinez prepared for another Saturday cooking class. At 67, Rosa wasn't just a grandmother. She was a force of nature. Her students adored her, not just for her legendary recipes, but for the fiery energy she brought to every lesson. That day, 12 eager students stood around her, hanging on to her every word. Knives clinked against cutting boards, pots simmered, and the summer sun glared through the windows of the community center. But amidst the chatter and laughter, something felt off. A man stood at the back of the class. Rosa's sharp eyes darted to him. He wasn't like her usual students, too jittery, too detached, like he didn't belong, and he kept glancing at the door, like he was waiting for something. Rosa's years as an ER nurse taught her to trust her gut, and right now, her gut was screaming. Chaos erupts. The explosion came out of nowhere. Boom! The side door slammed open and 2 masked figures stormed in, their voices slicing through the room like knives. Everyone down! Don't move! Screams filled the kitchen. Students ducked behind counters, trembling, as the attackers waved their weapons. Rosa froze for a split second, her heart pounding like a drum. But then instinct kicked in. She wasn't in a kitchen anymore. She was back in the ER, surrounded by chaos, saving lives with seconds to spare, turning the kitchen into a battlefield. Her eyes scanned the room, pots of boiling water, heavy cutting boards, gleaming knives. This wasn't just a kitchen. It was a survival kit. Rosa's hand moved before her brain could even catch up. She grabbed the pot of boiling water, her fingers gripping the handle like it was her lifeline. One of the attackers turned toward her. Big mistake. Hey! She shouted. The room fell silent. The attacker's head snapped in her direction. Just in time to catch the scalding water, Rosa hurled straight at him. He screamed, dropping his weapon as he clawed at his face. The second attacker roared in anger, spinning toward Rosa with his weapon raised. But Rosa wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Get behind me! She barked, her voice a mix of command and calm. The student scrambled behind her as she grabbed a heavy cutting board. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was her shield. The second attacker lunged toward her, his movements wild but clumsy. Rosa stepped aside, dodging him with a precision that defied her age. She swung the cutting board with all her strength, slamming it into his arm. The weapon clattered to the ground. Rosa didn't hesitate. She snatched up a chef's knife, gripping it tightly as she stood between the attacker and her students. You picked the wrong kitchen, she said, her voice low and steady. But the fight wasn't over. The first attacker, now furious and disoriented, stumbled to his feet. His mask had been ripped off, revealing a scarred, twisted face. He reached for his weapon, but Rosa was already moving. This time, she used a frying pan. With a strength that shocked even her, she swung it across his face. He dropped like a sack of flour. The second attacker hesitated, his confidence visibly shaken. Rosa saw it. She seized the moment. Leave now, she growled, her knife glinting under the fluorescent lights, or you'll regret it. The attacker hesitated, but the sound of distant sirens made the decision for him. He bolted, leaving his accomplice groaning on the floor. When the police arrived, they found Rosa standing tall, her apron splattered with water, oil, and bits of sauce. Around her, students hugged each other, still shaking but safe. One officer stared at her wide-eyed. You took them down by yourself? Rosa shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. It's not the first time I've had to think fast. The students couldn't stop talking about her. She saved us, one teenager said, tears streaming down her face. She didn't even flinch. Local news stations called it a miracle. The community called it bravery. Rosa? She just called it another Saturday. The story spread like wildfire. By Monday morning, Rosa Martinez wasn't just a local hero. She was a national sensation. Headlines blared, Grandmother turns cooking class into battleground. Kitchen warrior, how Rosa Martinez took down armed attackers. From apron to armor, the heroic tale of a 67-year-old chef. News vans lined up outside the community center, reporters desperate to hear her story. But Rosa wasn't interested in fame. I'm just glad everyone's okay, she told a reporter, brushing off their questions like they were crumbs on a cutting board. But the students wouldn't let her downplay her courage. She was like a superhero, one gushed. I mean, who thinks to use a frying pan like that? Another chimed in. She didn't just protect us, she inspired us. I'll never forget what she said. You picked the wrong kitchen. It was like something out of a movie. Behind the scenes, Rosa struggled to process what had happened. That night, she sat alone at her kitchen table, staring at her hands. They still trembled, a stark reminder of how close she and her students had come to disaster. For the first time in years, Rosa allowed herself to cry. Not from fear, but from relief. She had spent decades saving lives in the ER, but this was different. I thought those days were behind me, she whispered to the empty room. But deep down, she knew the truth. When chaos strikes, you don't get to choose whether you rise to the occasion. You just do. The following Saturday, the cooking class met as usual. Despite the lingering trauma, not a single student canceled. In fact, the room was packed. Word had spread, and new students were desperate to meet the legendary Rosa Martinez. "Are you really the cooking class warrior?" a teenage boy asked, his eyes wide with admiration. Rosa chuckled, handing him an apron. "I'm just a grandmother who knows how to handle a frying pan. Now grab a knife. We've got onions to chop." The class laughed, the tension breaking like a cracked egg. But as the lesson continued, Rosa couldn't ignore the changes. The students weren't just there to learn recipes anymore. They were there for her strength, her wisdom, and the courage she had shown when it mattered most. The internet had exploded with memes, videos, and tributes to Rosa. Someone had managed to record part of the incident on their phone, and the clip racked up millions of views in just days. The comments poured in, "Rosa is the hero we didn't know we needed." "Who needs action movies when we've got this?" "Grandma goals, absolute legend." A fan even edited the video into a movie trailer. Coming soon, The Kitchen Warrior. Dramatic music swelled as clips of Rosa wielding her frying pan and barking orders played on screen. Rosa couldn't help but laugh when her granddaughter showed her the video. "Is this what the kids call going viral?" she asked, amused. "Abuela," her granddaughter said, "you're a legend." As weeks passed, Rosa began to see the incident as more than just a terrifying ordeal. It was a wake-up call. Her students had been shaken, yes, but they had also been inspired. Rosa realized she had a new role to play, not just as a cooking instructor, but as a mentor and a symbol of resilience. She started incorporating life lessons into her classes, teaching her students not just how to cook, but how to stay calm under pressure, how to think creatively, and how to face challenges head-on. "Life's like cooking," she told them one day. "Sometimes the heat gets turned up, and you have to figure out how to handle it without burning the whole dish." Rosa's story didn't just inspire her local community. It resonated far and wide. Invitations flooded in. Schools, community centers, even corporate events wanted her to share her tale of courage and quick thinking. At first, she was hesitant. "I'm just a grandmother who teaches cooking," she told her granddaughter. "But abuela," her granddaughter replied, "people need to hear this. You can show them that heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and ages." That's how Rosa found herself standing on a brightly lit stage at a packed auditorium, clutching a microphone in one hand and a frying pan in the other. "I wasn't looking to be a hero," she began, her voice steady. "I was just trying to protect the people in front of me. But let me tell you this, you're stronger than you think, and sometimes the most ordinary tools, like this frying pan, can save lives if you're willing to use them." The crowd erupted in applause, her words striking a chord with everyone from teenagers to retirees. Rosa didn't shy away from sharing the hard parts either. She talked about the fear she felt, the doubt that crept in afterward, and how she had to remind herself that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it. "People think bravery means you're not scared," she said in one interview. "That's not true. I was terrified, but I knew if I let fear paralyze me, none of us would make it out of that kitchen, so I made a choice." Her honesty made her relatable. She wasn't some untouchable superhero. She was a real person who had faced an unthinkable situation and risen to meet it. Back in her cooking class, things had changed. Rosa's students were more than just learners now. They were a community. They started calling themselves Rosa's Warriors, jokingly at first, But the name stuck. Some even began organizing safety workshops, inspired by Rosa's resourcefulness. One Saturday, a young woman approached Rosa after class. "I've always been scared of standing up for myself," she admitted, "but after what you did, I feel like maybe I can be brave too." Rosa smiled, her heart swelling. "Bravery isn't about being fearless," she told her. "It's about standing tall, even when your knees are shaking." As months turned into years, Rosa's legend only grew. She became a symbol of resilience, proving that age, size, and circumstance don't define your ability to make a difference. Her story was turned into books, short films, and even a viral animation that showed her wielding a frying pan like a superhero. Through it all, Rosa remained humble. "I didn't do anything special," she insisted during an interview. "I just did what anyone would do if they cared enough to act." But her students, her community, and the millions who followed her story knew the truth. Rosa Martinez was anything but ordinary. One evening, Rosa's family threw a small celebration in her honor. Her granddaughter raised a glass. "To Abuela," she said, her voice trembling with pride. "The bravest, kindest, and most badass person I know. You've shown us all that heroes can come from anywhere, even the kitchen." Rosa laughed, holding up her own glass. "To all of you," she replied, "because courage isn't just about what one person does. It's about how we lift each other up when it matters most." And as they clinked their glasses, Rosa couldn't help but think, this is what life is about. Not the headlines, the fame, or the viral videos, but the people she'd inspired and protected along the way. Because sometimes the greatest heroes don't wear capes, they wear aprons.